It's Friday, May 4th, 2007. There are just 549 days left until the 2008 presidential election.
It's noon here in the studio. It's 9 a.m. in Chris Matthews' hotel room.
I'm Will.
I'm Rob.
This is Political Lunch.
Welcome back to Political Lunch. In just a moment, we'll give you a full recap of last night's debate, but first, let's talk about the Politico.com.
Now, last night we had great hopes for the upstart political site's role in the first GOP presidential debate. Just look at this special page they set up, promising to stream the debate, accept viewer questions, live blog, whatever you wanted, they had it.
Now, the first problem, though, was the streaming. It just kept restarting. So MSNBC was wrapping up, Chris Matthews was still explaining what the little lights meant. And eventually the whole thing just stopped working altogether.
Now, the second problem was their live blogging. The Politico has built a reputation in a very short amount of time for having some of the best political commentary on the web, but where was it last night? All I kept getting in their live blog feed was this nitwit who kept wondering when the D.C. Madam story was going to come up.
And I love the idea of being interactive and getting viewer questions for the candidates, but some of them wound up just being really off topic, and it's just bizarre almost. I mean,
yeah. Colorado Rep. Tom Tancredo.
He fielded this one. This was a beauty.
The unlucky recipient of this.
Do you have a plan to solve the shortage of organs donated for transplant?
Well, I don't believe that the President of the United States should be putting forth a plan to do such a thing.
And then there was this one.
Beside yourself, who do you think should be the Republican nominee for President of the United States, and why?
Well, of course, if I thought there should be another one, I wouldn't be here.
Now, don't bother emailing us to say your feed worked just fine and you enjoyed their streaming video coverage. I'm sure it did, but in the world of online video, the key is to get it right all the time. That's the only way you're going to convert viewers from the traditional TV audience to the online audience.
Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to announce our first Political Lunch giveaway. But first, let's get right to the meat of the debate last night, starting with something we like to call Who Loves Ronald Reagan the Most?
Now, last night turned out to be a prize fight among the 10 GOP candidates vying for the title belt of most conservative, and seeing that the debate was held at the Reagan Library in California, they were all eager to invoke the name of that most revered conservative leader.
Rudy Giuliani wasted no time at all. Really, Chris Matthews opened with a Reagan question, and Rudy stepped right up to it.
How do we get back to Ronald Reagan's Morning in America?
You get back to it with optimism. And what we can borrow from Ronald Reagan, since we are in his library, is that great sense of optimism that he had. He led by building on the strengths of America, not running America down. Those are the things that Ronald Reagan taught us. You lead from optimism, you lead from hope, and we should never retreat in the face of terrorism.
By the end of the evening, Reagan's name had been dropped no fewer than 14 times. Rudy Giuliani and former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney both came in tied for the lead with 3 mentions apiece.
Now, the evening was clearly a competition for conservative credibility, and the top 3 contenders, well, Rudy Giuliani clearly faced the most difficult challenge there, given his moderate record on social issues.
Sure. After national security and the Iraq-Iran question, the topic of abortion received the most attention, and Giuliani stumbles a bit while distinguishing himself as the only GOP candidate who supports a woman's right to choose, if somewhat reluctantly.
Now, he does get credit, though, for very competently answering a question, Sunni versus Shiite.
What is the difference between a Sunni and a Shia Muslim?
The difference is the descendant of Muhammad. The Sunnis believe that Muhammad's the caliphate should be selected, and the Shiites believe that it should be by descent. And then, of course, there was a slaughter of Shiites in the early part of the history of Islam, and it has infected a lot of the history of Islam, which is really very unfortunate.
Now, I would love to have seen that question posed to all of the candidates. Seems like something that they all should know. Seems like something we all should know. But I wonder how they all would have fared.
It's funny, though. The down-the-line questions were kind of obnoxious at times. They did, however, throw out a couple of curveballs. And
sure, raise some of the interesting distinctions in the field. Giuliani, of course, the only candidate to support a woman's right to choose. And John McCain proved himself to be the only GOP candidate who supports an expansion of stem cell research.
I believe that we need to fund this. This is a tough issue for those of us in the pro-life community. I would remind you that these these stem cells are either going to be discarded or perpetually frozen.
On the topic of Iran, old Walnut's McCain stepped back from some of his previous rhetoric about bombing Iran. However, he did not mince words when it came to bin Laden.
We will do whatever is necessary. We will track him down. We will capture, we'll bring him to justice, and I'll follow him to the gates of hell.
On a question of evolution, McCain offered one of the evening's more nifty equivocations with this answer.
I believe in evolution, but I also believe when I hike the Grand Canyon and see it at sunset that the hand of God is there also.
But it gets better. Now, here comes the money shot.
Is there anybody on the stage that does not believe in evolution?
How about a freeze frame? Okay, let's see. That's Sam Brownback, Mike Huckabee, and Tom Tancredo, all proudly stating that they don't believe in evolution.
Talk about conservative cred.
As for the third member of the Big Three Lollipop Guild, Mitt Romney sure looked good.
Thank you. Of course we did.
And MSNBC's commentary after the debate seemed to declare him the winner. But this morning, we had a really hard time finding any standout performances on Romney's part. So he looked good, the mainstream media seemed to like him, and we got to leave it there.
Last week in our coverage of the Democrats' debate, well, we focused a lot on the underdog phenomenon. Now, former Alaska Senator Mike Gravel was a one-man highlight reel, but I have to say I was a little bit disappointed last night. There was none of that material to work with.
Yeah, our underdogs last night didn't bring much to the table.
Yeah.
Ron Paul, a Texas representative and a strict constructionist, was our greatest hope for some nuggets of that loose cannon, nothing to lose wisdom.
But he kind of, he
opened,
had a softball. And
right, opened weak, and then he got this softball question.
Please cite an example when you had to make a decision in crisis.
I wonder if he's referring to a political decision like running for office or something like that. I guess in medicine I made a lot of critical decisions. I mean, I can't think of any one particular event where I made a critical decision that affected a lot of other people. My major decision, political decision, which was a constitutional decision, was to urge for 5 years that this country not go to war in Iraq.
That just kind of fell flat, although he did give props to the interweb with this comment.
Do you trust the mainstream media?
Some of them. But I trust the internet a lot more.
Hey, that's us!
Now, another underdog candidate, former Wisconsin Governor Tom Thompson, had a little trouble coming up with lines of his own last night. Take a look.
Where I think the Republican Party lost its way is we went to Washington to change Washington. Washington changed us.
Haven't I seen that?
Yeah, where have I heard that before? I know I've heard that wait.
We Republicans came to power in 1994 to change government, and government changed us.
But it looks like he's gotten away with it, as I haven't seen that one picked up anywhere else.
Speaking of which, it's important to talk about what wasn't talked about in the debates.
Sure, last night, healthcare, a subject that is at or near the list of most Americans' concerns, was mentioned just twice. Once when Mitt Romney mentioned the new nearly universal health coverage plan in Massachusetts, and once when John McCain advocated a $3,000 tax credit to go towards healthcare expenses.
Likewise, global warming was mentioned only twice. Huckabee was somewhat non-committal with it, but I have to say Duncan Hunter really seized it by the horns and took a very moderate, even liberal stance.
Yeah, check out this clip.
I think that global warming and the need to be energy independent gives us a great opportunity.
Now, we mentioned earlier that the Politico.com didn't live up to our expectations, but there were some great bloggers who followed along last night in real time.
One of the best, I thought, was attorney Ann Althouse, who's become a fairly popular, moderately conservative blogger. She offered a straight look with a little bit of levity. There was also Space Tropic. Reason Magazine was also a great straight source. But my favorite had to be Vodka Pundit, drunk blogging the debates.
6:25 p.m. Imagine you're watching Hardball, only Matthews has 10 guests instead of 1 or 2. That's what tonight's debate has already devolved into. Now imagine that instead of candidates, we had 10 knife-wielding spider monkeys jacked up on mini-fins. That's where I hope this is going.
I just love that.
It's so good.
Now, Ron Paul got a little bit of a shout-out, sort of. Beth at My Vast Right-Wing Conspiracy blog predicted that Ron Paul's fans would start flooding some of the online polls. While it wasn't necessarily true of all the online polls, MSNBC reported a dramatic 39% rating just an hour after the debates.
For Ron Paul, that's a pretty substantial showing and a good effort on their part.
Now, in case you think we rely entirely on other people's work from the live bloggers, my little OCD friend here, Will, did his own note-taking during the debate. Take a look at this.
What can I say? I get pretty excited about this stuff.
He does. Thanks very much for joining us in our second week. It's a long time until the election next year, and we'll be with you all the way. Hope you continue to tune in.
On Monday, I'll be on the road, so we'll have our first ever Political Lunch guest host. Chet Clem is the editorial manager of The Onion, America's finest news source.
In honor of his appearance, we'll be giving away a one-year subscription to The Onion. We'll have a little contest to announce on Monday, so I hope you'll come back then.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
You know, unlike The Onion,
Yeah.
I pick up Jack's dog with the voice a lot of times.
Oh,
It's a heavy.
that's heftier. Yeah.